Hi, I'm Kyle Carlin. This is my video for Module 5, Understanding My Community, in the class for School and Community Relations at Fort Hays State University. I'm from Hays, Kansas, and so I'm going to present on my understanding of my community. I've lived here for a little over 10 years, but I've worked outside of the district or outside of the town for a lot of the time, and so my understanding of the community and how it relates to the school is a little different than if I'd been working for the school for 10 years, but hopefully I'll be able to provide some understanding here, but it also helps me, by doing this presentation, it helped me identify what I need to pay attention to more as I continue working in the district. All right. Most of the customs and traditions within our town are based off of our local college, Fort Hays State University, and the historic Fort Hays, which is just outside of town. And there's a ton of stuff that goes on with our Ellis County Historical Society around Fort Hays, and a lot of our things pull from, like our Wild West Fest, pulls from that history of Hays. Obviously, the music and stuff that comes isn't from back then, but the ideals around it are largely based on that historic Fort Hays Wild West days. Hays has a large Catholic population, but even those that aren't Catholic, there's a huge faith base within our town that has a huge influence on our customs and traditions and really everything that happens in our town. There's also a lot of local pride about Hays and what Hays is, and really holds on to those customs. But then we also have the college and the hospital, which bring in a lot of people new to Hays, first generation residents of Hays, and so there is kind of really this melting pot that happens between those that have been established in Hays and those that are new to Hays, and really is, while it can create some tension, it's largely goes well managed. Within our town, change is generally accepted well. There's been a lot of turnover within some key positions within our town: the head of the hospital, head of the college, the head of the school district, and all of these changes are generally well accepted. There have been some changes that have occurred recently at Fort Hays, for example, where a new president came in and was wanting to change things a little too fast, I think, for what people are used to. But in doing it so fast, there wasn't really a respect paid to the current traditions and customs of the university, of the town, and so there was a lot of resistance to that. But generally, as long as those traditions and customs are respected, I do see that change is accepted here as well as anywhere. So change is hard for everybody. So, all right. So the next section is the population. With the population characteristics, I used information from school district or the State Department of Education on school demographics, but then also information from the census on other population characteristics. Hays, Kansas actually has a pretty high graduation rate, pretty high percentage of the population that have completed high school, 93%. I felt that was pretty strong. And then we also have a third of our residents have a bachelor's degree or higher, so we have a lot of people who are educated, well educated, but then we still have 41% of our students who receive free and reduced lunches in our public schools. So there is still kind of that divide, maybe a kind of a breakdown between different segments of the population. Total enrollment in the school this year was 3,047. It's slightly lower than last year, largely based on large senior class that left and a smaller kindergarten class, and then just some minor migration of people going in and out. Unemployment rate is 2.0. or 2% in Hays. This is the lowest it's been since 2000, where it was 2.0 or 2% as well. Back in 1992, it was also at 2%. So that's about as low as it's ever been, as far as I can find. And so generally the economy is doing fairly well. Unemployment rate, again, is as low as it can be. And most employment is in sales and retail, but the largest employers in the area are local government, the city, state, and county government groups, the school district, the state university, Fort Hays State, and then the hospital. Those are the largest employers in the area. And then, based on the 2010 census, most of Hays residents are white, 92%, almost 93%. Then there's about 1% each for African American, Asian, multiple races, and about 2% from just all other races combined. About 5% of the population is Hispanic, and that has been rising steadily over the last few decades. The Hispanic population has been rising, but the overall population has been rising steadily since the beginning of Hays. It's never, as far as the censuses are concerned, the population of Hays has never declined. Okay. The main communication channels within our town are, we have Eagle Radio, who is has several radio stations for various listening interests. They're the biggest radio entity, where all of our weather notices and all of our information ends up going out through Eagle Radio in some form or fashion. For our news, we have Hays Daily News, the Hays Daily News, which is our local newspaper. They also have a website, and then Hays Post, which is kind of a web-based news outlet where most people get their news from. And then TV, our local cable distributors, Eagle and Nextech, they each have their information channels, and they do their different spotlights with the community and stuff that helps share information. And then we also have a local CBS affiliate, which they will do some stuff with Hays, but it covers the whole western portion of the state, so not everything on there is Hays specific. And then we do have a growing number of residents that have English as a second language, but as far as I know, none of these outlets have a Spanish section or Spanish distribution. And so I feel like as a district, making sure that when we are communicating, we're finding ways to communicate with those that maybe English isn't their first language, to help them understand, make sure they're getting the same message that we're trying to convey. So, okay, so the next section is with community groups. Most of our community groups are based on different ways of helping people. Kiwanis Club, which does a lot of things for children and things like that. Lions Club, which does a lot with eyesight, but also different things throughout the community. But really, some of them are broader in nature. Some are more focused on specific causes. Generally, the community organizations in Hays are largely supportive of public schools, and none are problematic organizations that cause difficulty with policies or anything like that. The only influence I've seen related to these groups are endorsements for the recent bond proposals. So, okay. The leadership in the community. Of course, we have our city commissioners, our elected representatives, that obviously make a lot of decisions within our town, have certain influences there. Currently, our current commissioners are kind of mixed in their support for public education. Actually, I think all of them support public education. Some have mixed support for recent actions that the district has taken. And so trying to build those relationships and make sure we have a strong relationship between our city government officials and our school district are important. We also have business leaders who have influence on the public in several issues. They're will share their opinion about certain school actions taken by the school, and that can be influential. And then, of course, religion is a huge part here in Hays, so it does take a toll, or the religious leaders do have quite a bit of influence as well. Characteristics of our community leaders, they're all very social. They usually have influence in multiple groups. Leaders in Hays have special connections to the public schools or the private schools, or both, either through marriage or other relationships with people that are in those schools. And really, the leaders in Hays are pretty accessible. Whenever I've reached out to talk to various leaders, whether they're elected or business professionals, I've generally felt that they're open to discussion about really almost anything. So I really feel is a strong aspect of Hays. Economic conditions. Economic conditions in Hays are closely tied to the oil business. Housing prices tend to go up and down based on how the oil business is doing. And then public perception it tends to be related to that as well. The economy in Hays is fairly strong. Unemployment is low. Retail business has been kind of shifting. There have been a lot of businesses to close, but I don't know if it's really an overall decline or just a shift in where people are shopping. The state economy is trending up in recent months, which should help have an influence on Hays as well. The political structure within Hays, within education, politics is deeply entrenched in education policy in Kansas, based largely because of the school funding issue that's been going on. The Kansas Supreme Court has had to be involved in determining that state funding levels aren't at appropriate levels, so there's been a lot of debate on that. Local bond proposals have also kind of brought more scrutiny to how public funds are being used at the local level, and of course that's going to bring more politics in nature. Social tensions recently, so the school bond issue, that seemed to be the biggest thing that people have had conflict about. There is some uncertainty with Hays Medical Center. There's been a lot of change there, different things opening and closing, different departments opening and closing, getting larger, shrinking, and there's been some uncertainty there that could be creating some tension for those people that are directly involved with that. Street layout in Hays is something that's often debated heavily about because of the roads here. If you've been to Hays, sometimes it can be difficult to get from point A to point B if you aren't familiar with your route. New real estate developments, of course, will bring in a lot of discussion, and then growing need for social supports in our town. There's a lot of needs regarding mental health and supporting people with various needs. And so I think that's just kind of kind of creates tension everywhere. So, some extra sources of information, different websites for Hays Public Library, the district, the city of Hays. Those are all places where you can find more information about Hays, and where I frequently look at to see what's going on in Hays. People serving in elected positions throughout the community are also business leaders, lawyers. They usually have multiple points of influence. So those structures, for me going forward, it's going to be big for me to learn about the various connections and influences as I move into leadership here. Multicultural issues here. We're largely white, so we don't have a lot of racial tensions. We do have a large Catholic population, a large Protestant population. We also have an increasing Hispanic population, and all of those have some commonalities in their cultures, but also some differences. And like I said before, the college and the hospital create kind of a mixing pot, which bring in a wide range of cultures that need to be integrated into the community and worked with. So, as far as measuring public opinion, Docking Institute at Fort Hays State University has conducted surveys on public opinions regarding the bond issue and other school issues. I haven't been able to find that information, and so that's one of my next goals, is trying to find that information. And then the school district has also conducted some climate surveys with parents and staff, but those results haven't been released yet. Now, when those do come out, I'll be interested to see what that perception is, especially after that the bond issue has gone through, or was denied in November. So, all right. Well, that's the end of my video. I appreciate you listening and taking your time to see what I'm doing. I look forward to learning more through this class. Have a great day.